Good evening, everyone. It is August, I have to look at this, August 22nd, 2024. It's a meeting of the Sherborn Zoning Board of Appeals. I believe we have two agenda items for the evening, both from the same applicant. Both are from Mr. Murchison, the first one being the Washington Street 40B project, and the second one being the Brush Hill 40B proposed project. So I believe Mr. Murchison wants to seek an additional stay of the Washington Street project and would also like to share some updated plans with the board and the town. I believe those may have already been posted. I just want to say, obviously, it doesn't appear to me at first glance that these are so substantial that they require a modified application, but I reserve, of course, the town's right to require that if necessary. And Bob, I did ask you if you could just sort of get ahead of this issue if we do reopen Washington Street at any point, to just so we have sort of your legal position clear now that Paul obviously is hearing your request, just so we can get all the sort of official opinions out and we don't have a lot of concern and swirl at the meeting. So that was the sort of the basis of my request.
Sorry, Zach, I'm not understanding. You're making a request of us at this point. Can you articulate that?
Yeah,
request?
I sent an email. I think I sent an email with respect to Washington Street to you the other day. Did you not receive that?
No, I did not.
I apologize. I thought I responded to you to your email, to my town email. So in that email, I had said, if we happen to reopen Washington Street, if you could sort of put a legal position in writing as to why it does or does not require an amended or new application, just so that we can have that on the record ahead of the meeting, and so we're not sort of swirling around that issue and wasting time. That was sort of my request.
Sure,
I'll resend, and I will make sure I'll resend the email after the.
Yeah, if you could obviously put that in writing, I think that's better for all of us. That would be great. And then I don't know, Paul, do you want to make a comment now, or do you want to wait and do it in writing at a later time?
It's better to hold off. Generally speaking, there's a wide latitude to make changes to comprehensive permit proposals during the local hearing process. I've never at any point had it determined that it requires a new hearing. It may require, depending on the type of change, that you go back to the subsidizing agency to get their input as to whether or not they think that you need to get your project eligibility letter updated. So if there are changes significant enough that it required that, we would certainly go through that process. But other than that, there would be nothing that would require, restarting the process.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I think that's just what I was trying to get at. If at some point you could just outline, your position on the fact
Sure.
that it doesn't require a new, eligibility letter, and then, it doesn't have to be a treatise, just something that people can read and ahead of the meeting and understand your position. And if it is controversial, we can obviously just pass that along to someone else.
Yeah, and Zach, it might be helpful to those gathered who are not privy to the email that I sent you if I took 30 seconds and described what I sent you.
Yeah, please.
Right?
Go ahead.
So I sent Zach an email, and I'm assuming it's been forwarded to the board at this point, but obviously not to the public, and I don't think it's been posted. But what I sent was that if and when we reopen the Washington hearing, and obviously we're asking for you to allow us a 60-day additional stay, with obviously those 60 days being added to the timeline as we did last time. But if and when we reopen it, it is our intent, and I sent you a new basic site plan, which reduces the acreage of the site. It doesn't do much to the building itself, in that the building's still where the building is. The footprint may become ever so slightly smaller, but it will sit on 10.2 acres, and it should be fairly obvious for those following along what that's going to look like, and that the 8+ acres associated with the by right Greenwood homes are being taken out of the larger 18.5 acres. So the site goes down to about 10.2 acres, which will require us to approximately reduce the number of bedrooms in the building from, I believe, our current proposal 70. And, you know, I'm not making the ask right now of the change, but I'm cuffing it and saying that it will be in the low 50s. The bedroom count will go down to the low 50s. You know, we can get into more detail, obviously. on that change.
And just, yeah, just to color, my request is just to nip the issue before we
Sure.
waste time talking about it too much. That was really
Yeah.
the basis of my ask. So
No, and I just wanted the public who's here tonight to be aware kind of what we've exchanged. And I have no problem, by the way, if Jeannie wants to post that site plan, that updated potential site plan for the project on the town website, as long as it's understood that that's just
right.
It's informative at this point. It's not a formal,
Yeah.
going forward.
Understood. Yeah, we'll just make sure that maybe we could, if we have, if I can have legal editorial rights on the title, maybe that will help to make sure we convey the right thing. If that's okay with you, Bob.
We just don't want people to think that this is a, formal,
Right.
final proposal.
Understood.
It is very, the actual acreage itself, if and when we reopen, is likely to be exactly what I've shown, but.
Okay. Wonderful.
As
So do you want to ask?
As you lawyers say, we will reserve those rights.
Yeah, we reserve a lot of rights. We don't even know what we're reserving. Bob, would you like to make a formal request with respect to Washington Street?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, we would request that the board stay our application for an additional 60 days, with those 60 days being added into the, what is it, guys, 180 days or 6 months, or
Yep.
that these 60 days would be added into that, along with the already time that you stated previously. I don't remember that exact amount, but.
Yeah, I don't know exactly where we are with, computing days. So I think generally I would say I have no issue with that. I think I'll turn it over to the board to see what their feedback is, but I want to make sure we get the days right. So I know there's been a few extensions, so I think we just need to get
this will be the second, or the first was a stay, and I don't remember when we did it. We'll have to go back until today, and whatever number of days that was will be added. And now I'm requesting that we do that same thing for another 60 days.
Okay. Yeah, maybe we'll just hold off on that motion until we can, through the course of this meeting, double check the dates, if that's sort of from a procedural standpoint. Zoning board, do you have any feedback, feelings, or concerns about Bob's proposal? I see Rick's hand is raised.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. It makes sense to just sort of put things to the side while the other stuff works its way out. I'd suggest to the chair and to the applicant that maybe what Jeannie put up be called the tentative plan. Just as a way to talk it, and that maybe during the course of this meeting, Paul Haverty, or maybe right after this meeting, he could tell us what his calculation is of the last extension plus this extension plus whatever we had left, so that we've got something from the applicant saying, here's where we think you are. Sure. That we run out, October 5th or November 10th, or I haven't done it. But I know I know Paul's keeping track of it, and I know he'll tell us.
So to clarify, Rick, you want to rely on my math skills?
Yes.
Well,
that is
lawyer math in general means you hire someone else to tell you what the number is, but yes. 1, 2, 3.
Yes, please.
I'll calculate that and get it for you before the end of the meeting tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I would also support the request for a stay of 60 days.
Great. Do we have a motion? Do we need a motion?
I move that the board accept the applicant's proposal to further stay the proceedings for an additional 60 days, which will be tacked on to the
original
remaining time period as of today.
Yeah.
That's my motion.
Okay, I
second that motion.
Wonderful. All in favor? I think we have unanimous. We'll just all in favor say aye.
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 Wabi, aye.
Thank you.
Great, to pass, we'll stay it, and then Paul, just give us that date here from your perspective, you know, when you were, before we're done. And now moving on to Bob, the Brush Hill project. I know that there are some other, I think you're prepared to speak about water supply tonight. Is
Yeah,
that
and
correct?
I can give a kind of a more procedural update first, and then we can spend a few minutes. I don't think this is going to take all very long. So
Okay.
we can get people back to their TV watching this week. So I guess I would tell people that, and those who were at the Board of Health last night are already aware of it, so I apologize for repeating myself. But Health Agent Mark Oram came to us in, I've forgotten exactly when it was, but maybe about 2 weeks ago. And in his comments on the septic system plan, one of the major comments that he made was that he wanted to see more deep hole testing and perk testing in the area of the septic field. We agreed to do that, and we were able to kind of scramble and get the folks, the engineers and the machinery together, and we did that with Mark this past Monday. So now we have the data, and we are going through it and plan on coming back with, based on that additional data, we're going to come back with a revised plan. One of the things we were hoping, and we're still hoping, given the data, that we'll be able to accomplish this, is to actually make move the system not in a significant way from where you have seen it in the original proposal. In fact, it may not move much at all. But it's our hope that by kind of getting the system to better soils based on more detailed testing, that we'll be able to reduce the size of that septic field, which is really quite large at this point for the number of gallons, which I'll remind you is 1,980. But we expect to be able to reduce the actual kind of square footage, if you will, of the septic field by 20 to 25%. By kind of moving it to where we have better soils, and therefore you get a benefit from operating in better soils. So we're going to get that done and get that back as quickly as we can. That work needs to be done before Tetra Tech can do its analysis of the septic. And frankly, they like to do stormwater and septic at the same time, so they've not made comments on stormwater yet either. And we're fine with that. But over the next few weeks, we should have a updated design to them, and they should get comments. And then I think we'll bring Tetra Tech and our engineers, DGT, to a meeting, and kind of we can go through kind of where we are, their comments, our comments back, and kind of have a conversation in front of you all on that topic. And then on traffic, unfortunately, you'll recall we spent a little bit of time talking about traffic at the last meeting, and I provided a traffic study to the board. Not unfortunately, but the timing of it was such that you and the public only received it 2 days before the meeting. So it wasn't really fair to have a super huge discussion. So we didn't. We talked about it a little bit. And I was hoping tonight we would have gotten traffic comments back from Tetra Tech, and I was going to bring my traffic engineer for the same type of conversation on traffic tonight. That I had hoped to do that tonight. Unfortunately, Tetra Tech, not surprisingly, a lot of vacations in the last week or two, and Tetra Tech was not able to get a comment letter out on our traffic report. So I canceled our traffic engineer for tonight because I thought it made a lot more sense to have him show up and have the conversation once we have peer review feedback. And I expressed that to you, I think, in my email, Zach. And so that's why we're not gonna, if somebody has a question about traffic, I'm happy to try and entertain it tonight, but my plan is that definitely at our next get together on Brush Hill, we'll bring our traffic expert, and Tetra Tech will bring their traffic peer reviewer to the meeting, and we'll have a good, robust discussion at that time, if that works for the board.
That makes sense to me. I don't think there's any objection from the rest of my board on this.
Great. And then what I had suggested in my email to you, Zach, that we do tonight, which, like I said, I don't think will be a long conversation, but I wanted to kind of address water supply, because that's always a topic of great interest to folks in these hearings.
Yep.
And so if Jeannie is here and she could throw up I did just a hand sketch on top of our plan that I think illustrates things a little bit better, and I'll speak to that, I think very briefly for maybe 5-10 minutes max, and then take questions.
Let me find it.
Sure.
And Bob, just while Jeannie's finding it from the water supply standpoint, are you sort of still taking the position that it meets all the local standards in terms of setbacks with respect to the wells? Is there any
Yeah, and I
variance?
can.
Is there any variance that you're seeking? High level, just to tee up what we should be looking at from areas of concern as we're looking at this.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm going to say when the plan gets up, and I'm going to be able to show it to you visually when it comes up. But yes, you are correct. No, here we go. No, that's not it. That's Greenwood in Washington.
Oh,
sorry.
Wait a minute, hold on.
Yeah, I sent it to you very recently, like an hour ago.
Okay.
But anyway, you're correct that, so, we listened to what you had to say about folks, families sharing wells at Farm Road in the absence of a public water supply. And we have come back and not done that same construct again. This time we are proposing, here we go, I hope. Thank you, Jeannie. Yep, perfect. If you can make it smaller so we can see the whole page.
Hold on. Come on.
There you go. One more, I think, would do it. Perfect.
Okay.
Yep, that works for me if it works for other folks. So what we're proposing this time is that each home have its own individual well that it will be responsible for, much the same way all of us have individual wells at our homes in town. Those 8 wells, I've taken a little, it was pink, but it's showing up here as more purple. You see little purple spots kind of going around in a counterclockwise circle around, sort of around that green line, but kind of generally out away from that green line. Do people see those dots? The pink dots or purple dots?
Yes.
So those,
they're visible.
yeah. So those are showing you the proposed locations, and this could change a little bit based on feedback from you all or from the public about the locations. But this is our cut at locating the wells. So what we were trying to do is to meet, as you mentioned, all of the local requirements for wells in town. The local requirements that, and I'm not really talking about quality because that comes later in the process once you've drilled the wells, of course. But from a location perspective, the local requirements are that you're 25 feet from a property line, that you're 75 feet from an adjacent well, and that you are 150 feet from a if the septic system is uphill, which in this case it is, the requirement is 150 feet. That green line that you see kind of wrapping around, there are two green lines, but the one on the upper part of the plan, that green line is the 150-foot setback for the septic system. And you will see that all of those pink dots sit outside of that green line. There are a few that are reasonably close to the green line that I could see trying to move further away. The first one in the very kind of the first upper left well, I could see heading a little bit further to the, I think that would be the, let's see, north to the west or down the page to just get it a little further away. As most folks know, all of the land around to the north and the east, i.e. the top and the left of the plan, that's all town conservation land. So, we could ask for a a waiver to the 25-foot setback to the town property line, because who really cares about a setback to, land that's been in conservation for 50 years and hopefully will be forever owned by the town. And that would allow us to move those wells, 25 feet further away from the septic system, which I don't think anybody would disagree with that. But for now, I've put them in a place that are compliant with a 25-foot setback to the property lines to begin the discussion. And then to the extent folks are comfortable with us asking for that waiver, we can move them a little further away. Let's see, that green line down at the very bottom of the page is a 150-foot circle around the western neighbor's well, and it's not the Lauterbachs, and I apologize, I don't recall the name of the folks who live in the in that property, because it's not actually the next door neighbor. It's kind of one off to the west, but they have a well, quite deep on their property, and that green line is 150 feet from their well. So you can see that our wells, which are most proximate to their wells, are, a good 175 to 200 feet away from their well. You just do the math by where they're located. And then the Natali's to the south, their septic system, there's a good distance to their septic system and to their well. As I recall, their well is all the way in the front of their house. But perhaps somebody will correct me if I'm wrong on that. And so that is what I would tell you about the our attempt at compliance with the local regulations on the water supply. I'm happy to take Andrew's question, Zach, if you want to allow that.
Yes, if I would open them to the board first, and then do the.
Sure. Well, in that case, let me just go a little bit further. I had just one more topic to present on before we go to questions. I saw Andrew's hand raised. So I wanted to talk about, one of the things about wells in Sherborn, and particularly when you start talking about multifamily, is people get concerned about the density of the water, the density of the development, and therefore of the water coming out of the ground, and what impact that might have on neighbors' water supply. And what I'd like to say is that if you calculate the number of bedrooms in this project, which is 18, and you divide by the 5 and change acres of land that we have, we are the bedrooms per acre density that we're developing to is about 3.5 bedrooms per acre of land. Okay. And what I would like to point out is that you can develop market rate homes by right with a density of 4+ bedrooms per acre, and that happens all the time. There's a fair amount of homes that are on 1 acre that have 4 bedrooms in them, which is more dense than the 3.5 bedrooms per acre that we are proposing here. Now, of course, we're doing it all on 1 5-acre lot as opposed to 5 4-bedroom houses on 1 acre each, but I would argue that that's the same use of water. We're using water for 3.5 bedrooms per acre, and by right, market rate housing is developed at 4 bedrooms per acre. And so there's certainly, I am gonna argue that the density of this development is no different than market rate density in town. In theory, you could also have a 2-acre lot, which has a 9-bedroom home on it. And that could be developed in town. So anyway, that was my comment on the kind of the density of the water use relative to the acreage of the project. So I'm happy to open it up for questions now, Zach.
Great, thanks, Bob. I would turn it to my board first to see if they have any initial questions before we ask residents if they have any comments or questions. I can't see if anyone's hands are raised just from my
Oh,
screen.
sorry, Zach, this is Rick. I have my electronic hand up and waving.
Okay, go ahead, Rick. I can't see you because this is up. So
No worries. I just want to caution everybody that while Bob says as a general matter about density levels is true, it's a little more complicated in the actual implementation. And so I think we just need to see what the peer reviewers and other people looking at it say. In general, the 4 bedrooms per Title V acre is roughly the right number, but it's not always an obvious yes. So it is what it is. We appreciate the presentation, and I just want to hear what the peer. I want to hear what the peer reviewers
No,
and
of
others
course,
say.
of course, Rick, I totally agree. What I would say is that I wasn't talking about septic here. I was talking about density of water usage, because that's the topic at hand, obviously, tonight. And I'm just saying that you can have more bedrooms and therefore, in theory, more water use in by right housing in town than on this project. That was my only point.
Yes,
and when you say
and yet water that comes out of the ground tends to go into the ground in Sherborn.
Yes, it does. That's right.
And Bob, when you say per acre, is that a Title V acre or is that a standard acre? I don't know if that's standard acre is the right word, but is it
Well,
the
the ratio that I'm speaking to would be the same in both cases. As when you really dive down into it, under Title V, you can build on 1 acre, you could only build 4 bedrooms. If you had about in fact, 53 Farm Road, which everyone's aware, I didn't build that or develop or build that house, but I did permit it. 53 Farm Road sits on 1.15 acres and is a 5-bedroom house. So, you can take the water usage density off of the bedrooms versus the acres, and that is more dense than what I'm proposing on Brush Hill.
John or Todd?
Thanks, Zach. I don't have any questions or comments for the applicant at this point.
Yeah, no further comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Mr. Lauterbach's hand is up. I don't know if we can recognize.
All right, thanks very much, Zach. My question or comment concerns the plan that you had up, Bob. So I'd like to ask Jeannie if she would put that back up.
Sure.
Great. Okay. Yep. Excellent. Thanks, Jeannie. All right. So my question, Bob, concerns the well that is closest to our property. Our property, you can see most of my first name. It's
Yeah. So that would be our well associated with unit number 1, Andrew, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yep.
So we have our septic system, the right around where my name is on that plan.
Hmm.
I don't know whether you were aware of that or whether the well still is outside the 75-foot zone or not.
So is your septic system way back close to your back property line?
Well, the septic tanks are closer to the house.
Okay.
However, the leach field is right there.
Okay. Well, I can't speak to it tonight, honestly, Andrew,
Sure.
because what we work off is Board of Health records, right?
Okay.
You go to the Board of Health and they have records about where your septic field is, and that's what we work from.
Okay.
If it's not in the place that their records showed us, then you're absolutely great in pointing out where it is, because we obviously need to know where
Sure.
your septic system is if it's not where their
Yeah.
records show.
Well, they're well aware of the location of it. It was put in about 8-9 years ago.
Yeah.
And Mark came out and
Yeah.
supervised.
No,
it.
I honestly, I can't speak to it because
Okay.
I am not aware of a septic system that close to that area. Because what we do, as a practical matter, the way the design gets done is you go down and you go to the Board of Health records and you plot the location of the septic systems, and then you plot circles around them, right? That's the way you do it. And there is no circle in that area that I'm
Okay.
aware of. But if it's there, we'll have to take that into account. Absolutely. That's news to me tonight.
Well, I'm glad I brought it up then. And it's quite possible that the theoretical green line is still outside of that proposed well. I'm not.
Yeah, but we'd want to certainly make sure of that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And that will be a to-do for me.
Are there any other resident questions, comments, concerns? I don't see any other hands, but it could just be my limited view.
There's no.
Oh, I see Daryl's hand is up.
got hers up.
Hi, Daryl.
Hi. I just wanted to mention that the Board of Health has not done a full review. One, there was information outstanding, and now with the recent field work and, as Bob mentioned, the potential shift in the layout of the septic system, we will be waiting until those plans come in and then move ahead from there.
Yeah, I think I'd characterize it, Daryl, slightly differently, and you can tell me if we're on the same page or we're not on the same page. But we received a full comment letter from Mark. In other words, he did a full review and gave us a series of comments. One of which was that he wanted to see more testing, which is why we did it, have now done it. But I understood that to be a full review of the existing system, of the proposed system. Of course, a full review will have to be done on the any modifications which are likely to the system. So are we on the same page, Daryl, about that? I think we are.
So Zach, can I respond to
Yeah.
that?
Please, yeah.
So I was talking about the board's review.
Oh, I'm
So Mark
sorry. I'm sorry.
Do full reviews of what comes in. I'm talking about the board then deliberating
Absolutely.
Title V
Oh,
compliance.
then we're totally on the same page. I was
Okay.
referring to the review of the health agent, which for us, that's a very significant part of the process to make Mark, happy about the design.
Right.
Well, same for us.
Yeah, and I can understand. I've been through it myself. So I guess just a quick question. From Daryl and Bob, when do you think we will be ready to have a I guess a complete discussion around the disposal system? I obviously not looking for guarantees, just trying to give folks advance.
Yeah, and the first thing that has to happen, it's on us. We just got the test results.
Right.
on
But you were
Monday.
able to do those the other day, right? So
But
you
we
did
were
some deep.
able to do them.
And
on
are these
Monday.
monitoring wells, or are these just?
Well, actually, it turns out that in some sites, you're right, Zach, you do have to put in monitoring wells. On this site, the groundwater was determined by what's called mottling, mottling, which is tells us it's basically the people who know how to do this, and I don't, can read the soil to tell where the high water is. And when you see that and that determines the high groundwater, you don't need to actually put in the pipes that you're talking
Okay.
about. We actually did put in one pipe just so we had one pipe in the ground in case, for some reason we needed to go and look at the groundwater at a different time, right?
So
But
what exactly what did you learn from your excavations of the past week then? I guess
Sure.
what are you testing? If you could just describe to folks what,
Yeah,
just
so
use color.
Mark had the field is quite large, and Mark had noted that there was a portion of the field which didn't have testing in it. And one of the things, and Mark will agree with this, it's very hard when you're out there before you design a system and you're testing to know exactly where to test. For anyone that's gone through this process, it's a little bit tricky to figure it out. So what we were doing primarily on Monday was to go and do some additional testing in some areas that were part of the design that didn't have testing already. We actually got some interesting results. We had a really bad result on one of the test pits that was at the kind of outer edge of the proposed field, and it failed the perk test, which is, you can't build a septic field in that area. What's interesting is that 20 feet away, we dug another hole and got very good perk results, which is, a little bit, Mark's the expert on this, I'm not, and my engineer's the expert and he's not here. But what I would say is that's somewhat unusual. The soils were consistent, but the perk rates weren't. But so what we're going to have to do is move it away from those soils that we found out were not good, and to get it into better soils. And that's going to be our challenge. To try to answer your question, Zach, we're going to try to get the redesign done as quickly as we possibly can. Obviously, we want to move this forward as much as anybody does. And we realize that until we do that, that neither Mark nor Tetra Tech can do a review, which is imperative for your, So I'm hoping a couple of weeks we have that, and maybe, another 10 days later, Tetra Tech and Mark can spend some time with it. And, so we're probably 5-6 weeks away from that conversation. The next conversation I think we can have, if we're done with the water supply conversation tonight, would be to get to that traffic that I talked about earlier at the next. So, it seems like maybe you guys are interested in doing more shorter meetings, which I'm in favor of as well. And we're going to be under an hour at the last meeting, and an hour on this, under an hour on this meeting, which is great. But I think if we do, maybe if it works for your guys' schedule, we do one in 3 weeks, we cover traffic, anything else that kind of comes up. And then probably in 6 weeks, we'll do the big conversation about the septic, which is always I think the biggest.
Yep. That's right. So,
And
water and disposal. So
Yeah, well, in this
Just
case,
personally-
I'm saying that I think the water's
Yeah.
a lot.
No, I'm just saying, yeah, traditionally, right, it's water and disposal. So, yeah, that's great. I think, so you've covered just sort of your water presentation at the moment. Of course, that is subject to change because you are redesigning the system, so you'll have to just update some of those setbacks and distances once that's done. But at least, at the moment, it appears to be in compliance with local regulations. Daryl, I see your hand is still up. I don't know if you have any further comments, but you're more than welcome to speak.
Just on schedule. So on the Board of Health side, of course, as the plans come in and they're ready, we do have a queue and we do honor kind of first in, first out sort of approach. So some of it depends on that. And there's also a dynamic that if the materials come in very close to a meeting and the review can't be done between whenever they arrive and the meeting, our meetings are 2 weeks plus apart, depends, how the month falls, but usually 2 weeks and then maybe 2.5, 3 weeks in between. And so that can cause a delay because the board then needs to deliberate on Mark's analysis.
Okay.
I just wanted to explain it, but no big deal.
Appreciate that perspective for those who are not familiar with your process and the meetings and such. So thank you. So it sounds like I can't believe we're at the end of August, but it sounds like maybe end of October, we're going to be ripe for septic, assuming some delays in Board of Health meetings. So just want to make sure we're well within when did we open this meeting? For those who may have a better recollection than me, I just want to make sure we're within the
You would think I would remember, Zach, but I don't.
June 26th?
I'm pretty sure.
So does that mean we have till Christmas effectively?
Something like that. Something like that. I hope we won't need an extension, but obviously we're probably getting close with a late October meeting. So just obviously do our best, but just keep that in mind, Bob. So
well, what I would hope, Zach, if it works for you all, is that we could do a meeting in 3 weeks and then plan one, let's call it 4 weeks after that. So give us 7 weeks. And if we can't hit it, we can always just continue it, right?
Right. I'm just trying to keep things moving. I'm sure we don't want another duration of Farm Road for this project. So just trying to keep it moving. So Rick, did you have a comment or a concern? I saw your hand up, maybe, I don't know.
No, I was just suggesting that since we have Mr. Haverty, the human calculator, he could tell us exactly what the dates were.
Certainly. So according to my calculations, the hearing was opened on February 13th and then continued and stayed on May 23rd. So the hearing was open for 100 days. And that leaves 80 days left. It's been stayed since May, so no further counting has occurred. So without a further extension, the the date to close the public hearing would be November 11th. The additional 80 days actually takes you to November 10th, but that's a Sunday, so it'll push it back to November 11th. And with another 60-day extension, it would extend it to January 9th, 2025.
And this is Washington, so people don't get confused. We're talking about Washington.
Right. And I was asking about Brush Hill. Sorry, could not have been more clear.
Oh, well, I haven't looked that up. Let me just quickly take a look. So when did that open?
So we just,
I think it was June.
We just pause for 1 second just to carry on that last thread. So are you suggesting, Paul, that based on what we voted on this evening, we're good until January for Washington Street? Is that what you're saying?
Correct, January 9th with the 60-day extension.
Thank you. Sorry, I wanted to close that loop.
Zach, I think what Paul just told us is we have 80 days from whenever we get going again.
Correct.
Great. And sorry, for Brush Hill, do you know when I think Gene said we opened in late June.
June 26th.
June 26th.
Okay.
So we do have till Christmas approximately.
Yeah. Okay. Obviously, just keep that in mind.
It's been 56 days.
Okay. Okay, so we think we'll talk about traffic next week. Next week. Next meeting for Brush Hill, Bob. Is that what we're gearing towards?
Yeah, and so yes, if you could propose a date, that'd be great.
What is 3 weeks from now get us? September 15-ish. Is that right?
What about,
about-
I think it's the previous week. One, 2, 3 weeks would be the 12th. I'm actually traveling the 12th, but I could do any other, well, the 10th or the 11th would be Tuesday.
Yeah,
night.
that's a bad week. I think that we were just bad. There's another project in town, Bob, I think you're aware of, not by you, that we have to have a meeting that week. And I'm actually traveling and Jonathan has a trial. So we are pretty, it's a bad week. If we could do it the week of the 15th, that would be better.
Sure. Yeah.
So board members, any preference the week of the 15th?
Tuesday night, the 17th, I'll throw that out there.
Sounds good to me. Todd, Jonathan?
Let's pull out the
John
calendar
shaking his
again.
head.
No, I don't get a good look there. He's on mute.
John, you're muted.
I'm sorry, the 19th, 17th does not work for me. Nope.
Okay. The 19th better for you or no?
Yep.
The 19th. Does the 19th work for folks?
19th works for me.
Yeah, I
Okay.
can do the 19th. My only issue is that is also a Concom night.
Okay.
So I may need to work with Concom on the timing, which is what I'm doing tonight. I'm actually on with Concom in 13 minutes. So
Okay. Do we want to do
the
Jonathan?
19th is fine. That works. I think we should be able to get it done in an hour, right?
Okay.
Well,
Yeah. If it's traffic, hopefully it'll be within the hour. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Let's plan for the 19th then for the next meeting on Brush Hill. And it looks like the next meeting we would have to have on Washington, did you say January 9th? Or no, is that what you said?
No. That's the outside
No,
date.
60 days from now would be mid-October,
So when do we
Right,
have to
so-
extend Washington again? Or
October
for you?
22nd, I think, right?
Okay.
Second.
It does
No,
need to be
they-
Tuesday.
continued
before
to a
that,
date
we gotta-
certain.
Yeah, we got to go to a date certain.
That's fine. Let's
And,
just keep it. I think we can set a meeting at the next meeting, possibly for
Yeah.
early October for the Washington Street. I just want to make sure.
Well, don't you need to continue it to a date?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
we
we probably do.
need to continue to a date
But-
certain.
but-
I'm sorry.
If you want
Yes.
to, you can continue it to the next meeting and then have this discussion then. That works fine.
Okay. So why don't we continue Washington Street to the next meeting just to discuss when the next meeting will be?
okay, good.
Mr. Chairman,
that's
would
the
you entertain
19th
a
for-
joint? Yeah, I was gonna say, I move that we continue both of them to September 19th at 7 PM. What do you
Seconded.
feel about that?
Second.
Any objections? Otherwise, I'll assume it's unanimous consent. Great. No one said boo, so we all agree. So, great. We'll see you on the 19th to discuss traffic for Brush Hill, a further extension of Washington Street, and I guess if something else pops up in the meantime, Bob, we'll be in touch, and I will make sure I get that response to you today that I had already responded. I will be sending it probably from my own Gmail account, so I don't know if there's a filter on or whatever, but I'll forward it to you.
Great, thank you.
Rick?
Mr. Chair, while we're here, and Jeannie, maybe I'm stepping on your line, don't we have to set another meeting for arts?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
But we could do that, if you want, I can ask him if he can wait till the 19th. I think he wanted something sooner. It's up to you.
The 19th. Could we, is that a quick discussion, Jean? Is that
It's a
something we
quick.
could
He
do
want-
on the
he
9th?
I'm not sure how quick it's gonna be. The Board of Health is gonna have to weigh in. He wants to have more of an ice cream
Right.
kind of sit-in type of restaurant,
Food service.
food service.
It's possible the neighbors won't totally love that since they do food service. And humans being what humans are. But, so I don't think it's a 5-minute, Mr. Chairman. I think it's longer.
Yeah.
It could probably, it might be 45. I don't know.
Why don't we do it why don't we do it after, if we could do, can we do it after the 40B on the 19th? So Bob can get in early and out and get to conservation if he needs to,
Yeah.
and then we can schedule that for tentatively like 8 o'clock.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Wonderful. So I'll take that as a motion from someone.
So moved.
Great.
Seconded.
Wonderful. No objections, it passes. So I think we were going to, I would take a motion to adjourn this meeting, and since we have no other business to attend to.
So
I'll move
moved.
to adjourn.
Second.
Don't race too fast. Wonderful. No objections?
No.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Bob. We'll see you on the 19th. And if you have any questions, I'll make sure you have my contact information.
Hey, good night, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Good night, everyone.
Thank
Thanks
you.
very much,
Good
Jack.
night.
Good night.
Thank you.